Now, what should we do about it? And the first thing I want to say to every one of you tonight, every single one of you, I'm talking to you in your heart and in your head. I want you to believe that we can change it. When I was growing up on that little farm down in eastern North Carolina, picking cotton by hand. Anybody else in this room ever pick cotton by hand? Well, there are 4. We'll get together and talk about it. Your hands are probably still bleeding. In those days, I knew my schools weren't good enough. When I got to NC State, having been valedictorian of my class, little rural school, I did my best. I made B's, some A's. But these city kids, including Raleigh, especially the ones from up north, were knocking the top out. And I knew why. Not because my mother English teacher wasn't good, didn't encourage me to read. I read all the time. And my daddy, who was a soil conservationist, NC State graduate, didn't encourage it. It was because they had better schools. And it was wrong. And right then, when I saw the difference as a student at NC State, I said to myself, we're going to change that. I'm going to help change that in my lifetime. And we did. Here are 10 things I think we ought to do. 10 things. I'm sorry to be so prescriptive about it. I want you to remember these 10 things. First of all, commit to every child in North Carolina, all our children and all God's children. I want you to understand this now. I know some people are a little sensitive. You talk about God, get nervous about it. I believe in talking about it. I believe in God. And I know these are God's children. And I know what God wants. So I want us to care about every one of them. I want us to help every one of them, James. All of them. And they all can be helped. That's number 1. Number 2, I want us to renew our commitment to the North Carolina public schools. All of the public schools in every county in this state. Renew our commitment to them. This almost has got to be this is a matter of your brain, but also your heart. What are you in life for? What's it about? What should you be doing in your life? I believe we should be doing that. And I don't know many things that are more important or as important. You know, the right wing likes to call these public schools government schools. Have you heard that? Yes. Oh, they say they're government schools. Let me tell you something. They're not government schools, they're our schools, our public schools in North Carolina. And we want them all to be excellent. Third, we need to ensure a smart start for every single child. You hear about all these children that come to school with a very limited vocabulary. They've heard very few words, even pronounced in their home, very few books in their home. Let me tell you, I want every child to start to school on that first day healthy and ready to learn. You know what I like to say? Ready to fly. I want them to fly. And they can if they get a good start in good schools. Then, I want us to make sure that we have high standards in our schools. Now, folks, we can't be successful if we don't have big goals and hold ourselves to accomplishing those goals. I want us to have high standards. I believe in the Common Core high standards. I saw the governors enact those. The governors and the state superintendents across America put those in place. Businesses for them, Superintendents are for them. Teachers are for them. We've had them in place for 4 years. We ought to just go on and let's do well on them. Know what we've got to do, and we ought to stick to that. Next, we ought to measure learning of all students so that we can teach them more successfully. We have to have accountability. Some people wince when I say that. Oh, that means testing. Right. It means good testing, fair testing. It's the people's schools. It's their money. It's their children. They want to know if they're learning. Now, let me tell you something. I grew up in the rural South. I graduated the year that the Supreme Court ruled on Brown versus Board of Education. I know what they used to say in the segregated South. They said, oh, those children can't learn. They can't do. That's what those people thought about African American children, and today they'd say it about Hispanic children. It was wrong. It was wrong. And folks, I want to tell you, we have to understand that all of these children do need to learn and can. Next, we have to have excellent teaching in our public schools. And I want our teachers to be as good as the public school teachers in any state in America. I want those teachers to be well prepared. I want them to be well paid. And I think a reasonable goal, having done this before, and by the way, let me tell you how that happened. Karen Garr and some other folks know about it. When I was getting ready to run for my 4th term, the NCAE officials came in to see me in the Capitol, and they said, Governor Hunt, we expect you're going to run for a 4th term. And I said, what in the world made you think that? They said, we think you're going to run for a 4th term. Why don't you run? By the way, these were people who cared about the public schools, working on them, thinking about them, having ideas about how to make them better. Why don't you run on raising teacher pay to the national average? I said, well, where are we now? And I've done a lot of things. We've done a lot of things. Where are we now? They said 44th. One place behind South Carolina. I want you to know I had a fit. But James, I decided to run on it. Here was the deal. I was going to go out and campaign across North Carolina and tell the people, if I was elected again, we were going to raise teacher pay to the national average. If you wanted to do that, vote for me. If you didn't want to do it, vote against me. Guess who won? Maybe we ought to do that again. Maybe we ought to run a lot of races on that issue, huh? In fact, the top teachers in our state ought to have good pay. Now, folks, I'm not talking about a miserly little approach to this. In my book, First in America, that I gave to you all, I said that in 2001, or in 2001, I wrote in my little book, First in America, that a teacher then, that was in 2000 now, this is 15 years ago, a teacher who had 30 years of experience, who had national board certification, that extra 12%, and who had the master's degree could make $60,000 a year. I said then it ought to be $100,000. Now I'm serious. I know a lot of people, oh God, what the hell? I don't. I know what engineers make. I know what lawyers make. I've been one. We want people just as good at teaching. We want to get them. We want to keep them. So let's don't be small. Let's be big. Let's be audacious, as Terry Sanford said. Seventh, let's increase the support for teaching and learning. Let's rehire the teaching assistants that I put in one time. Let's implement the school technology work that the State House is working on right now, and I commend them for it. The Speaker of the House, I think, went down on the floor and spoke on it the other day. Good. We got to do these big things in technology. The kids want it. They love it. They're good at it. They can work these cameras. I noticed a few of you had a little problem tonight. You want to see me try. The State House is working on it. Friday Center is working on it, developing a plan. North Carolina Best is pushing for it. Eighth, we should, as citizens, should do things personally to help improve the schools. Now, it's important to do this work corporately, together. But folks, we ought to be out there working at it personally. And I know so many of you are, maybe all of you here tonight. We ought to support organizations like Public Schools First in North Carolina. We ought to build it. We ought to expand it. Let's make it a statewide organization that is strong and powerful and gets things done like it's done in Wake County and Durham County. And Guilford's coming along and others. I challenge you all to mentor students. Did you know that every week I was governor for 16 years, I went to one of the public schools in this county and volunteered to help kids? You know who taught me to do that? My wife taught me to do it because she's done it for 40 years. And by the way, she's back in Wilson County now doing it again. Doing it again. She's got a little girl. She's got a little girl in the second grade who's got so many problems. She's got terrible eyesight. I think she was born almost blind. She needs somebody to be her advocate. See, we get those glasses, and she gets the help she needs. She makes her letters from the bottom backwards. Somebody need to spot that way back yonder. That's what these mentors and volunteers can do. We got more people than there are children. And the women in my church are really working hard at helping volunteer in these schools. We ought to do that. We can overpower the problems if we get out there and work at it for our children and God's children. We really can do it. I want you to think about that. Now, we're not just talking about spending money here tonight. We're talking about personally getting involved and making a difference. Ninth, we should provide the financial support that our schools need. North Carolina should have a reasonable and adequate tax level. We should not cut more from the revenues that we need for public schools. There shouldn't be any more cutting of the monies that the schools need. And my friends, North Carolina should not take public funds that public schools need and provide vouchers for private schools in this state. I want to tell you, I think it's unconstitutional, and I know it's wrong. Finally, and 10th, something that I thought a lot about in recent times. When my wife went over to this little school in Wilson, North Carolina, with some other folks from our church to sign up as volunteers, she said, "Honey, I saw one white child in that school." Now, there might have been a few more, but there weren't many. Folks, we've got to find ways, and we've got to act, and this isn't going to be easy, I want you to know that, but we've got to find ways, and we've got to act to reverse the resegregation of public schools in North Carolina. That's a moral issue. Finally, I want to say this to you. I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again. I've talked about a lot of things. Ann has. We all have. Folks, I'm not talking about stuff that's impossible. We can do it. We've done it before, and we can do it again. Really. I want you to feel the power you have. I want you to feel what we can do together. I want you to understand that the people of North Carolina are pretty conservative, but they want good public schools. They want them for their children. They want them for their grandchildren. They know they're important for their jobs and their economy. They're not fools. They're pretty good people in North Carolina. We're different from some of these other southern states down here. Even South Carolina, which we're behind on per capita spending now. So we can do these things. Thank goodness that Wake County and Durham, Guilford, Dot Kearns is not here, but she's working so hard with the League of Women Voters and others. We can do these things. And I want you to feel deeply. I want it to tear at your guts what's happening to hurt the schools of North Carolina. But more than that, I want you to understand that we can change it. We're the captains of our own destiny. We will have help from above if we work at it. I want you to feel empowered, know what you're capable of doing. So let us organize together. Let us support the conditions we need to have. Let's get the voters motivated. Let's get the good candidates running on it. Let's do all we can to support, to praise and support and help the public schools of North Carolina. And in doing so, we will make North Carolina all that it can be, all that it should be, all that it must be. Thank you all very much.